Welcome to Helping Hands. This is where we recognise the people and organisations around Australia who make the world a better place. Coming up today,
Makes a difference to the environment, obviously with the utilisation of the waste, and it creates job opportunities in Southeast Asia as well.
the global impact of buying fair trade.
We often learn most from our failures when things go wrong.
What does it mean to have a fall from grace? And we invite you to connect at helpinghands.tv. Last week, we saw the positive impact buying fair trade can have here in Australia. Whether it's household items, consumable, health and hygiene, or anything else, there is usually a fair trade option to consider, and the ripple effect can be ongoing. Today, we'll see the positive impact we can all make around the world.
I'm Caroline. I'm from a company called Created by Culture, as well as a brand called Adinkra Designs. I've been here pretty much my whole life, but I'm born in Ghana in West Africa. And what I'm doing is I'm really trying to focus on building the profile of some of the artisanry that sits in Ghana and some of the skillmanship and craftsmanship that's there. So I actually support artisans in Ghana. And so if I don't build that market, build that profile for our customers, I'm not going to be supporting those artisans consistently. So it's really about economically empowering those people. And so I need to build that customer base here so that we can continue to make products over there. I'm hopeful that people will come to the market and really understand where these products come from, understand that there's something really special about the fact that they're all, done by hand and almost different and unique and imperfect.
We've been trying to focus a little bit of our attention on our own ethical consumerism, and so this is kind of a way for us to kind of put our money where our mouth is to some degree, to kind of say, if we're going to be ethical in our consuming practices, then why don't we do something that makes it a little bit easier for us to do that. Another is to invite our community in. We have this facility, and we know that you don't have to be a person of faith to be concerned about just practices around the world, to want the end of slavery, to make sure the things that we buy are, in the best sense of the word, guilt-free. And so it's an opportunity for us to invite our wider community in as well.
These days, people can sometimes feel disconnected from who's bought their product, and the great thing about buying fair trade is that you have a direct connection to the person that's made their product. So one of the things that we do in the fair trade movement is we try and shorten that supply chain so there aren't so many layers that you're going through to actually the person that's made that product for you. So there's a direct connection, and you can actually know the story of who's made what it is that you're buying.
So it's all made from recycled glass. Yeah, I can actually show you. So in Ghana, West Africa where I'm from, what we're actually doing is we're collecting bottles and glass, we're grinding it, we're melting them down in our traditional kilns, and then basically what they do is they then send me the beads, and then I make all the jewellery here by hand. Yeah, so it's a whole process, but we get there. Yeah, we have a lot of rubbish in Ghana, so we're just trying to do our bit to clean up the environment. Yeah, exactly. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the chains are really popular. And the rings are adjustable, so all you have to do is widen them or tighten them, and they can fit any of your fingers. I've been talking to a lot of people around basically the skillmanship and the craftsmanship that goes into each of our pieces. People have really just loved how innovative we are in Ghana, creating new things out of rubbish and recycling, and it's just been great to be able to share with people how we're collecting rubbish, we're melting it down and creating something new and beautiful.
We've got some beautiful hand-painted mugs here from Palestine. We've also got some shopping bags here. These are made in Uganda by a lovely group. So a great way to support the women in Uganda, as well as having a positive environmental impact not using plastic. We've got these beautiful natural loofahs. A lot of people don't realise that the word loofah is actually the name of a plant. So this is actually, we call it the Cleopatra loofah because it grows in Egypt, and they just cut the plant and dry it and make it into these beautiful loofahs for our body. The light bulb moment for a lot of people is realising that a lot of things that they're normally using in their day-to-day lives are actually having a negative impact, but they maybe don't stop to think about who's made what they're using. So actually pausing to stop and think about who's made it, and realising that by buying, you know, the Egyptian loofah, you're actually having a positive impact on the person that made it, as well as getting a lovely product that's natural fibres and not putting plastic in the ocean. And you can actually do all of that in one go.
It's great to be doing something in the community that really matters, and to introduce people to what we're on about. We are against slavery in all its forms.
After the break, the things you can buy at a fair trade market.
Dip it into the oil and then dip it into this. This is called za'atar.
Well, we're selling lots of things from Africa and Madagascar and Cambodia. So we have some beautiful hats from Madagascar with porcelain jewellery, rings. These are all made from pieces of Japanese porcelain in Cambodia, and the silversmiths actually make the silver that goes around them. So all really using waste products into something that's really beautiful.
Ethical consumerism is wrapped around the idea that everyone in the supply chain ends up getting a fair wage. It's kind of how that works. So that nowhere along the line is anyone mistreated or enslaved or oppressed, so that we get a kind of a good deal. So sometimes when we purchase things that are, you know, really cheap, there's a reason why they're really cheap. If you've ever asked yourself, you know, how do they manage to create this for such a low cost? Inevitably, someone down the supply chain probably didn't get paid a fair wage. And because that's kind of blind to us, it's kind of outside of our immediate purview, we end up kind of getting these good deals and other people get ripped off. And so the idea is that in ethical marketplaces like this, all the way down the supply chain, we know that those who have done the work, who have been involved in the manufacturing and even the supply of the goods, have been paid a fair wage.
Apart from talking about the products themselves, it also gives us a chance to talk about Palestine more generally. The more we sell, the more the money goes back and assists the farmers, the producers.
Barton and Leone's stand with the repurposed cement bags has really caught my eye, that they've made into wallets and handbags and those. And I just think there's something really quite clever about reusing something in such an obvious way, a product that is made out of something that normally would be in landfill. And it's got a really lovely feel to it, like the texture of it is great, the logos are unexpected. So yeah, that's probably the thing that's caught my eye the most.
If we look at Cambodia, they've got a massive problem with waste. There's no waste collection. There's millions of motorbikes, so all the motorbike tyres are normally traditionally either burnt, become toxic, or they're buried in landfill or thrown in the ocean. So we're trying to reuse all of that waste material into something that, you know, we can reuse as a fashion accessory or a wallet. We call it vegan leather, so it's a great alternative to leather. No animals were harmed, and it's making use of a waste material. People that are eco-conscious, people that want to make a difference in terms of the where and how it's made, it makes a difference to the environment, obviously with the utilisation of the waste, and it creates job opportunities in Southeast Asia. That's made out of similar material to a cement bag, but these are fish feed bags. So for all the inland fish farms across Southeast Asia, big 50-kilo bags, traditionally would be buried or burnt or discarded in the oceans. Obviously harmful impacts on the wildlife and animal life there. With the coconut shells, it's all transformed and made and hand painted by a very small community or artisan groups, so they're all working in a safe environment. We are an endorsed Fair Trader of Australia. There are conditions and checkpoints that we go through to work with these groups as well. So I'm looking forward to purchasing and having a look at the range of other groups. So I've got my eye on some olive oil.
If you dip it into the oil and then dip it into this is called za'atar. It's a mix of wild thyme and a herb called sumac, which is like little red berries. Give me your verdict.
That's so good.
Yeah,
it's such a interesting mix of herbs and spices.
This is a maftool, which is a Palestinian couscous. And these little balls are hand rolled by women in the Women's Cooperative in West Bank.
Advocacy is a really big part of the fair trade movement. Really, we're wanting to tell people what fair trade is all about, help them to understand that every purchase they make does have an impact, and you choose what impact that is. It can be a positive impact, it can be a neutral impact, or it can be a negative impact. By buying fair trade, you're having a really positive impact on the environment as well as on the people that have made that product and helping to build their capacity and empower them to build their own businesses.
So the ladies actually, this is sisal here. So sisal is actually the inside of a cactus that the ladies actually weave.
I want to be someone who is a part of ending modern slavery, and coming here today makes that possible.
I think it's a responsible thing to do. Maybe we can do and help other countries and, people worse off than ourselves sort of thing. It's nice, a good conscious thing to do.
I will definitely come back to this fair trade market this year and every year.
Today has met my expectations completely. They've come and they've bought and they've learned all about the products they've bought, and they know that they have helped people who are poor and needy, and that in itself is what we're all about.
If you are a helping hand or would like to see a helping hand from your local community featured on this program, visit our website and be in touch. We'd love to hear about the people and organisations across Australia who are making the world a better place.
Head over to the Helping Hands website to find out more about the Fair Trade Association of Australia. Simply follow the links to the Helping Hands directory. Welcome back to Helping Hands. This is where we celebrate the people across Australia who make the world a better place. The panel joins Laura Bennett in the studio today and discuss what it means to experience a fall from grace.
Thank you so much for joining us. With me on the panel today we have Brooke Prentice, a Waka Waka woman and Aboriginal and education consultant. We've also got Raewyn Elsgood from Sport Chaplaincy Australia and Graham Cowan, one of the founding board directors of Are You OK? Thank you all so much for being here with us. Raewyn, what does it mean to be gracious?
Some strong words around being gracious, I think. Kind being my number one favourite. Compassion, forgiveness. There's kindness I think we just don't have enough of in this world.
Is grace something, perhaps, Brooke, that you think is always connected to forgiveness?
Oh, that's a really tough one. Forgiveness, sadly, has become such a loaded term directed towards Aboriginal peoples. Like, people hear us calling out injustice or trying to tell the true history of the last 250 years, and the response back will, you need to forgive. What people don't realise is I've already forgiven. With every breath I take, with every step I take, I have forgiven, and I have to forgive each and every moment of each and every day as an Aboriginal person with what has happened to my peoples over those last 250 years. And so on the other side of that with grace, though, is through that shared history of our last 250 years, the response from Aboriginal peoples and from myself is to hold out our hand in friendship. And many of my non-Indigenous friends have described that as grace and have actually indeed called it a miracle.
There's a real depth in these ideas of grace and forgiveness. Clearly it will mean something different to each of us. Do you feel, Raewyn, that there are different approaches to grace and forgiveness depending what faith background, what cultural background we come from?
Yeah, definitely. I think you just need to get a group of, like us, in the room together and we'll all have a different answer. But the main thing that comes to mind is feeling like an outsider. Culturally or faith-based, this person sitting next to me doesn't believe, what I believe, or they don't think the way I think. So how do I then include myself, or how do I help someone be included?
And it's interesting our use of words, because I know when someone falls from grace, like that's the term we give it when someone makes a mistake. Is there a better way, Graham, maybe we should approach that language or approach our response to somebody when they make a mistake?
I think it's about acknowledging that we're all human. Like, no one is perfect. We all make mistakes, and another way of falling from grace could be a failure. But we often learn most from our failures when things go wrong. If we don't learn from those failures, then that is not good. But for me, and I'm sure many other people, some of the biggest life lessons have been through a failure, learning from it, and actually moving forward. I know when I had that incredibly difficult 5 years, depressed for that period of time, I never would have thought that that was a transformational experience. If I told you that back then, I wouldn't have believed you. But I came out of that with a different set of perspectives and priorities and values. And I now look at that period as a miracle.
It's incredible that you can look at it that way.
Yeah, back then I would never have seen it as a miracle. It was, it was really painful, not good. But there's also something about self-compassion. There's a psychologist, Dr. Christine Neff, and she's shown that self-compassion has all the upsides of self-esteem, but none of the downsides, like narcissism. And so speaking to ourselves like we speak to a good friend, we don't always do that. And it's important, that we practice kindness to ourselves.
And so, Brooke, from your perspective, what would it look like to be gracious, to show grace to others?
I think it looks like what Aboriginal people have been doing for the last 250 years and still today. I think, sadly, often grace can be weaponised as well. And so when someone wants to avoid or not do the confrontation, and confrontation is sometimes needed. Otherwise, we don't grow from our experiences. And so sometimes people will say, oh, you just need to show grace. And it's like, well, actually, let's actually look at the situation, what really needs to happen here, and looking at each of the different parties involved and actually sorting out how to move into that shared future together. And so I think those things are really important.
Yeah, and we've spoken obviously about how to show grace to somebody else, but then when you're on the flip side, when you're the person who maybe has an awareness of your own need for that grace to be extended, Graham, what would you say to that? How do we receive grace when we've been the one to perhaps do something that needs that?
I think it's about acceptance and gratitude. Like, if you're in a bad place and someone does reach out, does offer support, does offer encouragement, that's really fantastic, and it's great for a sense of family or community. And it's like having, scaffolding around us. We're going to fall down at some stage. We want people to assist us, but someone else will fall down, and then it's our obligation to look after them. When I couldn't look after myself, it was my parents that looked out for me, and they believed in me. They remembered when I was in good shape. They reminded me of when I was in good shape. And it was a constant support and encouragement. Interestingly enough, I was lucky to have that family support, but quite a few friends fell away during that period of time. But there was a couple of friends in particular that, did really reach out, visited me in hospital, asked me to go for a walk, which is the best thing you can do to someone who's going through a tough time, asked me to go for a walk. And that level of support, whether with my parents or a couple of really great friends, made all the difference.
What would you add to that, Raewyn? How do we receive grace well?
The best advice I ever got from a dear old friend was be kind to yourself, which means think about yourself a little bit more than you would normally. Think about being kind to, not just to others, but in the time that you reflect, in the time you spend celebrating your own life. And that's just from me, coming from a person that gives all the time in my job at Sports Chaplaincy Australia. You just got a natural bent to constantly give to others, and you've got to remember other people might be different. They might be selfish and self-absorbed and need to refocus on, sharing and being able to give to others.
It's a helpful reminder. Thank you all so much for your contributions today. If anything we've spoken about has touched on any of your own mental health concerns, you can call Lifeline 13 11 14. Thank you so much for being with us.
If there's a topic that you'd like to see discussed on Helping Hands, visit our website and be in touch. We love talking about the things that make the world a better place.
Head over to our website to see the extended conversation on grace and to contribute to the conversation via our social media channels. Closely related to the topic of grace is the question of forgiveness and acceptance. Having the ability to forgive others or to be gracious is just as important as being able to say sorry and then accept the grace that others might show to you.
Let us know about the Helping Hands in your local community at helpinghands.tv. Send a photo or a short video and tell us about your local heroes in 25 words or less.
Visit our website to watch the extended discussion on grace and to contribute to the conversation via our social media channels. Thanks to Laura and the panel, the Fair Trade Association of Australia, and to you for being part of the Helping Hands family. See you next time on Helping Hands.